The process of developing a track starts with an idea. This is where we step into the producer or director mode. We have a power to shape the track's direction by defining its emotion, energy, and feeling we want to create. Once we establish the vision, we can spend days gathering the right elements, designing sounds and selecting textures that align to desired mood. During this phase, we experiment with different melodies, write multiple layers, and refine our selection of sounds. But once we move into the actual track development and arrangement, one of the crucial skills is having a strong sense of composition. How the track evolves, how we control the energy, and how we execute seamless transitions are the key to maintain the flow and engagement. In this video, I'll share my approach to transitional elements, the techniques I use to ensure smooth and natural transitions in my tracks. Hey producers, I'm Mark, also known as E-Clip, and I'm inviting you to join E-cademy, my 3-month online music production program. In just 12 weeks, you'll master everything from sound design and mixing to arrangement and self-promotion. With live Zoom classes twice a week, personal feedback on your tracks, and access to my exclusive sound banks and materials, this program is designed to help you to unlock your full potential as a producer. The program starts on March 11th and runs until the end of May. Spots are super limited, only 15 producers, so don't wait too long to grab your seat. If you are ready to level up, head over eclipmusic.com/e-cademy and sign up now. Let's create something amazing together. Before we dive in, I just wanted to mention that Sounds of Akasha will be launched really soon. This label, co-run by Egorythmia and myself, will focus on truly progressive Psytrance. If you would like to submit a demo for consideration, please send us your SoundCloud links to info@soundsofakasha.com. Now back to the video. In this tutorial, I'll cover Psytrance transitions using following elements: hits and impacts, risers, snare rolls, and fills. These fundamental elements play a huge role in shaping the track movement and flow. So let's go and dive deep into it. So in this track, it's already done, and I chose this one. I will start with the hits and impacts, as I'm using plenty of them. So the hits and impacts we will use, let's say in the intro, if we use like the booms and everything, but since I'm talking about the transition, I'm not gonna mentioning the booms so far. And I will start with the basic elements that we mostly use to announce the start of a new cycle, of a new scene of a track, or certain beginnings. So we usually start it with the crash, which is kind of the most used one, let's say, element of the hits. So I use the crash, and I usually put a little bit, if it's a short one, I put a little bit of the reverb on it, a pretty long one, because I really like these tails and I love when all these elements are just kind of fading down a bit slower, not just to have a crash and then stop suddenly. So I just use this tail of a reverb to kind of extend it and to kind of smooth it up and to create this floaty liquidish feeling, since it's really good fit for this track. Now, another thing that I mostly use is to exaggerate this moment of the beginning, as the crash is covering mostly the high frequencies. I love to have something that's gonna punch in the mids as well, because it's gonna exaggerate this moment. Of course, I'm not gonna glue it with the crash, as I want to use them separately. In some moment I might use only this element, and some moments I might use only the crash. So I usually make the clap. I find the clap that sounds pretty rich in the mids. I put the reverb and a delay on them, like. And then in most cases, I love pitching that clap down, because it's gonna move them to a bit lower frequencies. And there's some magic when you use a sample, when you put a reverb and a delay, and mostly I use a delay with a low cut and high cut as well, so with the 2 filters. And sometimes I'm gonna put the resonance in the mids, so that the tail produce more of these repetitions that are gonna hit more in the mids, as that way it creates something that I really like how it sounds. So after doing that, I might transpose that for a few seminotes. In this case, I think it's already bounced when it's transposed, but I'm gonna use something like -3, like. So the difference is like. And I believe that like, this most likely was the original, and then on 0, I might even use it like -2, like. So I'm not choosing a tonality, since this is the element created from noise, so it doesn't have any tonality in it. Maybe it has a peak on a certain moment, but the claps mostly are not tonal, since they are made from noise, which means they have the harmonics in every single frequency. I just use it as a noise moment, like to create this loudness and the punch that's gonna exaggerate a certain moment. There's something like explosion, I'm gonna find some explosion and like... Again, I'm using a lot of reverb and a delay, since I believe this is what makes this kind of hypnotic feeling, and all these delay feedbacks, if we set the delay correctly, I can use maybe a filter to create a movement on the tail as well, etc, etc. So in this part I use the laser shot as well, like there's not much of the delay, but there's a reverb on it. So these are kind of the impacts where we mark the beginning of certain moments. So the track, I just need to explain the composition overview to say. So the intro, the track starts really slow, and then there's an ARP starting from after 16 bars, and it goes from the filter with the external filter with the 0 point. Now this is a reverb. So where is I think it's this one. Yeah, so it starts from the really low frequencies and it starts opening up. So before it reaches to its maximum point, when I open all the frequencies and with the filter reach its maximum, on the bar 49, the kick and bass are starting. So it's kind of surprise moment. And this ARP is kind of bridge between intro and once the kick and bass are starting, as I really try to do some things differently and not always start a track with the same, like there's an intro and then there's a certain moment of stop and then kick and bass dry. So I really wanted to do something different. So I kind of put this ARP to continue once the kick and bass are starting. So this bar 65 is the moment when the kick and bass are going into the filter and I implement a little bit of the reverb. So I just create this moodiness or madness, I don't know how to, just like to blur it out a little bit, since they are going into the break, they don't need to have power. And if I just cut the highs and lows, it's kind of not the same feeling as when I implement a little bit of reverb as well. So the start of that point of kick and bass going to that point and like going into this small break, or to say pre-break or whatever, I have these two impacts that are marking this beginning of that moment. So it's just like a lot of loudness, a lot of noise in that moment, just to exaggerate that moment, like. And the close hi-hat is starting in that moment as well, just to bring a little bit, like to bring a track to a higher energy level. So this is another thing when it's not for the transitions, but it reflects to the composition itself. So as the track moves forward, we need to keep or maintain the focus of the listeners. So rising up the energy all the time, and we mostly do that by adding the elements that are having a high frequencies, like the hi-hats, one hi-hat, another hi-hat, snare, open hat, rides, blah, 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 and then it reaches its maximum point. So this moment I already explained, and now I'm gonna move to the uplifters and everything. So the uplifter that I'm gonna use always, it's going to be mostly made from noise. So I'm gonna put a noise, I'm gonna open the filter on it, and then I might use certain movement plugins like maybe flanger or something, just to create additional movement to all of these elements. So like basically it's starting from really low frequency or the cutoff position, and it's opening up, and this jet filling is the flanger on it. And this is the element that I'm going to use always, as noise are really good for like creating the tension. But most of the risers that we hear lately are like just the pitched ones, which really goes to my nerves, and I really don't like using them. But I believe I'm making the same effect with the elements like the noises. And then I have the snare rolls, which are really good to pump up the energy. And like with the snare rolls that are coming slowly in and opening the filter and maybe increasing the number of punches, we are creating this like announcement, something is gonna happen. So we are using the same thing, and again, it's a snare, it's a really nice and powerful element, and I don't feel it's kind of cheap trick with using just the wow, something that's gonna go pitched up, and I don't feel it like with the snare and the noise. It's like we are creating the same, exactly the same the effect as we would do with uplifters, but they don't take the attention. They don't have much of these things, and they are kind of almost unexpected, or they are almost not noticed. We just hear the increase of the loudness, and like something is rising up without taking too much attention to the like pitched up tonality or whatsoever. While if it comes to the risers, I'm always gonna try to make something a bit different. In this moment, I use two oscillators. They have this gating effect on the volume of them, and like rate is starting with 1.8, 1/16, and then 1/32s with the increase of the filter as well. So it's like, and the pitch is also happening to, yeah. So this one, so they are kind of zaps, but not that much. So like. And then they stop. So this is now again a second thing. So I'm using these ones. We have, let's say, the riser and this impact, and then we have this uplifter, the noise uplifter starting at this point, follow up with the snare rolls, and follow up with this riser that I created with the zaps. So it's just... And then in that moment is one of the most important things when it comes for changing the scenes of a track. As if I play from the beginning, and you will see that there's a lot of textures like pads, some natural sounds, then the sea noise, which I really love, like enriching the track with some natural sounds, as I believe it sounds way smoother, way better. I have some violins and organic sounds in this part, a little bit of vocals, and then ARP starts to happening, it's opening up, and then in a certain moment the kick and bass are starting, and all the way until this 73 bar, it's kind of the same scene of a track, like everything is connected to the previous sounds, and everything is flowed, kick and bass are starting, so it's just energy going up. And in this moment, I really wanted to switch the scene of a track because it's already 2 minutes, and I wanted to go to the groove part of a track where I just cut it and start with something else. So in this moment, when you do something like this, when you want to change the scene of a track, I have this 8 bars break or uplifting part, I don't know how to say, pre-break, and then there's this rise moment with the noise, with the snare rolls, and this riser which I created, and then in this moment, just like half of the bar, it stops, and then in the last bar before this groove part starts, I have the fills. So when you want to change the scene of a track, when you want to move from one happening to another, rise it up to a certain level, stop it, put the fill, and then it's gonna be connected. So if I extend the kick and bass to go to this, if I delete the fills and I just change the scene, it's going to be like there's a sudden change, and it's not going to fit well together. So if you want to have a like contrast scene, like completely different, as I have this ambiental melodic part, and then I want to go to the groove where I started with the snares and hi-hats and like completely different scene, and I completely moved the scene, as now I'm just playing with this rhythmical small bassline stabs and create like additional groove, like extending a groove to a certain level, like, and all of them start sudden in this moment. So if I didn't have this small stop of the half of the bar, the first 1/4 of this bar is going to be full stop, and then I have the fills in this part, and it really helps to transit from one scene of a track to another, like. Now the question that I get a lot is, what do I do with the fills? Where do I find them? So Loop cloud splice is the best part. I always look for the reggae feels, I look for the funk feels, I look for something that's kind of more not that much electronic, because I really try to bring a lot of organic, like the live drums or whatsoever, as they sound way better in my opinion, and this is my taste. So I'm never gonna use one feel, and I see that a lot of people are making the mistake looking for the right feel, and I never found it. So my way of doing it is like layering, and in this track I have like 6 channels of the fills, which I combine in the different parts a little bit differently. In this part, the second fill, let's say. So in this part of a track I use 2nd, 3rd and 6th fill to create this. So I'm gonna start with the 3, because the 3 is just like clap, and then I reversed the clap on I put the reverb and I reversed it, and I use this as like a small uplifter, just like short uplifter before the fill hits in, like, and then I have 1/16 of the break, and then I have like 3 shots. So yeah, and the fill number 2 is just like 2 snares, like 2 different snares, like, and then the 6th one is something similar. It's just like tom, like just to give a little bit of the character to it. So all 3 of them are sounding. And if I pull it like with this, like, yeah, so this is just the short one, and like filling up these gaps, like. So without a fill, if I just mute it, like, it's just something is missing. And if I extend everything to be merged to the 73 bar, it's not gonna sound the same. And usually I do that, as I already said, to move the scenes from one to another. So now in this part I did have 2 different uplifters as well, and the decision here is that I have these fills which I were able to use in the part where kick and bass are going, but this was when I was making a decision, should I keep this ARP going all the way to 73 bar, or should I stop when the kick and bass are starting? So if I use like until this point of bar 49, I would need to stop them, but then I would need to increase the maximum filter point to this, like. Of course, again, as you are able to hear, this violin, it really doesn't help to this transition, as it's creating the bridge in between. As if I want to use the fill, if I want to stop the ARP, I need to create this moment of silence just before it starts, like. Yeah, something like. Yeah, and all of these I would need to stop into this moment, in this moment. So like. Yes, again, there's something is staying, so I would need to cut everything. So the intro is coming, in one moment everything needs to stop, no tails, no nothing. Stop, fill, kick and bass, then it will have the sense. There's still one sound is going and playing. Let me see. Okay. It's this part over here. So I'm just gonna use the mute knob as it's easier for me. And then fills. I could stop the bassline when the fills are playing, as it will have more sense. I could add like one more, like bam, or whatever, like. Okay. So these are the elements which I mostly use almost always. So the fills are there to help you to fill in the gap in between of two scenes of a track where you make a stop, put in the fill, and then move to another one. They are great for that. Uplifters, noises, and risers are really good for creating the tension and announcing that something new will happen in a track. And the hits and explosions and booms are really good for announcing the beginning of something. So the sounds of a laser, something that have a really strong punch at the beginning and then it fades down really quickly, like crash, clap, whatever it is, whatever you like, and then just filling them and combining them. So I'm not sticking to the crash only. I like to fill it with the clap, with the reverb and a delay on top of it, as I believe it's kind of sounding louder, as I can use that in the moments where I want to exaggerate. And the sweep downs are really great when you want to create in a new beginning, but you want to create a little bit of noise to exaggerate the loudness of that part of a track, like in this track, as without it, it's just not loud enough, as there's a kind of big change in the track. Again. So I use now the fill number 1, 2, 4, and 6 to this part. And what I did, I had this impact, which is kind of boom. So what I did with it, like when this small break starts, like I just announced like, so I had one more impact on that part of a track. Like without it, it's just like, so if I play the whole track like, and with it, it's like, even though I could cut it from the different part, because there's going to be like two, like there's a boom and there's for 1/8 of the bar, there's a boom, and then there's a like the fill. So it's like, so like two parts of the break before the next part is starting. Again, everything is follow up with the same rules. In a certain moments of a track, I'm going to decide I'm not going to use all the rising elements into the like layer one on top of them if it's the beginning of a track. So I want to keep that maximum level of impact for like the most important part of a track, and this is the main development when everything is starting. And as well, if you want to create this tension, the good thing that you can do, you can put all your drums top end on a group itself, and then you can start apply the filter as well. So it's like in this part of a track when like kick and bass have started already on a filter, like, and then snare roll, riser, uplifter. So this will be the small tutorial about how to use risers and everything, but this is a bit more complicated, as there needs to be developed the sense for composition. Again, I'm starting E-cademy on the March 11th. If you want to learn everything when it comes for all of it, you can sign up. It's going to be a 3-month program where I'm gonna have 2 sessions a week, like Tuesday and Thursday on 6 p.m. Central European time. All of the session will be recorded and uploaded online. And if you want to have a step before that, I have a bunch of the courses on my website where you can follow up and see the whole processes. I have the Psytrance production sound design, I have Psychedelic Tips World 3. They're kind of differently organized. Psychedelic Tips World 3 is developing a track from the beginning till the end, but the good thing is that you can see development of the whole track from the beginning till the end. But the kind of a bad side of that is that I develop only one track, so each decision was leading a track to a certain direction. While Psytrance production and sound design, I open many different types of the tracks. I explain how to make a deeper progressive, how to make a fast full-on, what are the key points of a dark music, of the progressive, of different types of the progressive, how to make a hypnotic track, how to make an uplifting track, etc, etc. So it's kind of two different parts, and as well there's a kick and bass class if you want to master how to make your kicks and basses with a bunch of the elements like presets and everything. They are all up on my website and you can learn. So thank you very much for watching and see you soon with another video. Bye. I'm beyond excited to announce that my brand new course, Psytrance Production and Sound Design, is available on my website. Everything you should know and understand how to boost your production to the next level. Visit www.eclipmusic.com/courses and sign up for the course that will change your production and craft up your career.